God. There we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I was just double checking that things are working. That's working. This is great. My name is Derek Silva. I am the Chief Operations Officer, Operating Officer for Reef. Welcome to our first live stream, AMA, etc. in a while. Sorry for how glitchy this is. I'm actually going to turn this off. You'll see the office. It's fine. Off. How do we just turn it off? Anyway, while I figured that out, yeah, like I said, thanks a lot for joining. I know where. Nope, that's not it. I don't know where the heck to turn it off. Where's the background? Off. Just off. Okay. I don't know where it is. Okay, we're just gonna have to deal with it. Sorry. Anyway, thank you very much for joining. I am going to bring up the roadmap here. We're going to walk through it. I'm going to give you a lot more of the color on why we're doing what we're doing, why we're heading in this direction as soon as I find it here. And then we will open it up to questions about the direction, the vision, the roadmap, etc. As always, I'm not talking about the price of tokens, period, unless it's a stable coin, because that obviously has a specific purpose. You can ask all the questions you want about Reef tokens. We're not going to be answering those. Here we go. All right, uploading that PDF now. In the meantime, if you are catching this live, feel free to drop your questions on X, YouTube. Those are the preferred places. Obviously, I'm one person. I'm not going to be monitoring every single platform throughout this whole event. Here we go. But we will do our best to answer all your questions before the end of it here. Do 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 do. All right. Also, don't do that. Am I streaming from the basement? My office is in the basement. If you don't like it, that's fine. Okay, so yeah, let's get going here. So this is our 2026 roadmap. A lot of people have asked us before, like, are you guys going to focus on a niche? Are you guys going to go specific? We've resisted that up until recently, but decided obviously that can't continue going forward. So here's where we're going here. We've got a little bit of discussion about general purpose blockchains, where we're at right now, different opportunities to differentiate, our growth projections. We're focusing on the conservative numbers, obviously, what needs to happen internally and what we can do in the next 12 months after that, and then kind of setting the template, and then we'll get into questions. So being real about the current state of the industry, Ethereum has won in a lot of ways. It's a compliant place in terms of ETH being deemed not to be a security by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission very publicly a few years ago. That really opened up a lot of doors. And even when Ethereum was more expensive to use as a blockchain, which has kind of gone away, the roll-ups came on board and things like that. A lot of those roll-ups are very general purpose, basis general purpose, pitching themselves as bringing the economy on chain, but then they go and focus on creator coins and things like that. So that message got a little bit muddied. Optimism is a very general purpose L2, so is Arbitrum, a bunch of others. That being said, about 50%, when I put this research together, about 50% of all total value of tokenized stocks were on Ethereum, are on Ethereum. Just, you see organizations like Franklin Templeton, yeah, deploying money market funds on chain on Ethereum first and things like that. It has a massive TVL, a lot of stablecoin flows, 166 billion TVL as of when I put this together. About half of the stablecoin dominance, it's there. And a lot of legal clarity in the United States, and therefore you've had 50 plus large non-crypto enterprises, companies like BlackRock, PayPal, Deutsche Bank. They're building on Ethereum and their L2s, and that's great. It's one way or another, it's found a bit of a niche. So I'll actually come back to these points on the side, but we have some points here about how we can mitigate some of that here at Reef. Actually, I just realized I'm not using the right microphone. That's not good. I should be using one. All right, if you can't hear me anymore, let me know, but that should be coming through loud and clear. Solana has primarily is the meme coin station. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't say that as in a derogatory way, just as a very matter of fact way. On the other hand, you do have Base focusing on things like creator coins recently, but that's led to a lot of failed tokens. And quite a bit of backlash recently. Even the Base app itself, Base has decided to go less social and more trading focused recently. So, they're obviously pivoting and responding to what people say they want. Solana has a ridiculous amount of DEX trading volume, trillions in about a year, over a trillion, 200 billion in January 2025. Meteora and Jupiter are the top two revenue generating protocols on Solana. They generate a lot of value there, or a lot of fees, I should say. And a lot of organizations have chosen Solana as their stablecoin settlement platform, or blockchain in this case. Visa specifically, Visa is kind of spreading their wings. They're a design partner for the Arc chain. Obviously, we have Tempo, which I can't remember if that's from Circle or Square. But anyway, you have some stablecoin focused layer 1s and layer 2s coming on board. PayPal even deployed PYUSD on Solana. So I'm going to back up here. Things we're taking into consideration to help mitigate some of these while this organization has one type of situations. Oh boy. By Bernhardt. Reef instead can target companies in the middle and startups who need a lot of guidance. And there are lots of those. There are thousands and thousands of those who don't want to build their own subnet, don't want to build their own L1 or an L2, don't need to, but they also don't want to start from scratch, but they also potentially don't want to compete against PayPal, BlackRock, etc. In that niche, there are very easily about at least 2,000 companies that we can approach about building on Reef instead, with the right messaging, narrative, and a few more tweaks to the chain. We can have a robust ecosystem with just a few $1 million worth of USD and Euro denominated stablecoins flowing through the system. Yes, more is better to a certain extent, but to really kick things off, you don't need more than a few $1 million. 5 deployments of major stablecoins, especially when we already have USDC on board, would provide some choice without completely overwhelming people. There are a ridiculous number of stablecoins now, most of them USD denominated, a lot of them Euro denominated. Then you have yen and yuan and Canadian dollars and Singaporean dollars, etc. Those can all coexist, but I don't know the last time you looked at the stablecoin ecosystem or the landscape, but there are a crazy number of USD denominated stablecoins, and a lot of them have very few use cases other than send it from here to there. It doesn't take a lot of companies to establish a vertical. 10 to 20 high quality, let's say projects for now, would establish a vertical pretty solidly. And of course, there are billions of people in the world, especially people who are on live streams like this, who want to invest in a variety of different things, different ways to grow their wealth, and equity is really the best way to do that. And I think that's one of the things that blockchain was supposed to be really good at, is empowering individuals with real ownership. And a lot of that's been forgotten or ignored or kind of put by the wayside. And I think that's a key thing we can bring back to the forefront here. Mitigating some of these things about Solana, meme coins, creator coins, etc. The number of rug pulls is astonishing. A lot of honeypots. I saw a recent piece of research from, I think it was The Block or Cointelegraph, CoinGecko, and basically 2025 saw over 20 million tokens failed in the sense that for more than 30 days there's been no on-chain activity related to those tokens. That's not good. It's not a good way to create an ecosystem, to have a positive ecosystem that works for people. And so it's, the average person doesn't want a meme coin. Lots of people want to just have fun with it. $10, $20, see what happens. Sure, fine. But the ability to, the ease of creating a meme coin and, basically dumping on people has led to a lot of bad feelings. Let's put it that way. Regarding DEXs exist to provide liquidity, and it doesn't matter whether it's a permissioned token or permissionless token. DEXs can exist. Liquidity is typically less for a permissioned token, but the ability still exists to create a DEX. And the more I talk to people, the more I see online, the more I see things like fan equity, fractionalized assets, tokenized assets. Those are all things people understand, they recognize, and they want to be able to access. Regarding payments, any blockchain where payments are happening needs a stablecoin supply, but we don't need billions of dollars of it. We don't need 50 different stablecoins. We need a few good ones with good liquidity so that the average person can transact, basically, on-ramp and off-ramp, especially off-ramp if you need to do stuff with that money in your day-to-day life. Although that's becoming increasingly on-chain too, as we've seen. And so instead what we can do is target compliant equity tokenization, permissioned DeFi where necessary, and alternative investments for people who are not accredited investors. I'm not an accredited investor. Most of the people listening to this or watching this right now are probably not accredited investors, regardless of what the definition is in your jurisdiction where you live. And that means you are shut out from a lot of opportunities, and we think we can change that. So looking back on 2025, we did hit some key milestones here. We had a bunch of new artists try things out on Squid. That went pretty well. We had some major centralized exchanges switch to supporting native Reef. At the beginning of the year, that was a big problem, honestly. We had a lot of exchanges that only supported a Reef on Ethereum or only Reef on BNB chain or some combination of the two. I think it was only one or two that supported Reef on Reef chain, which is ultimately what we want. So that's now changed drastically. If I go to reef.io right now, we've got 12 now that support Reef on Reef chain, which is, I don't know, it's like a 800, 900% increase, which is terrific. We launched the Reef bridge. That's done really well. We did a bunch of coin swaps with centralized exchanges to make that transition possible. That was Q1. Q2, more centralized exchanges switched to native Reef. We tried some sponsoring, or started sponsoring some sporting events to see how that goes. The Whitebit Trading Festival. Q3, things really kicked off. Project Deep Current, the major blockchain upgrade, which we will discuss a little bit more detail later, that kicked off. We announced our sponsorship of Crawley Town FC in the United Kingdom's League Two of the English Football League. We had KuCoin and Poloniex add native Reef support. That was really important. Ledger hardware wallet support came back and finally went live in general availability, not just dev mode. The USDC bridge launched. Alchemy Pay fiat on-ramp was activated, so possible for you to easily purchase Reef with fiat in 170 some countries and most US states. We went to Nigeria and had a really, really good time there. And then we got Reef relisted on Bitmart, which was obviously a big deal for a lot of people. And finally, by the end of Q4, we had burnt over 10 billion legacy Reef on Ethereum and BNB chain. The vast majority of Reef on BNB chain is burnt, which is terrific. We went to Italy with Pudgy Penguins and attended and sponsored La Dolce Waddle, which was a lot of fun. And we finally got Reef Chain Wallet launched on Apple mobile devices, iOS and iPadOS. So we didn't hit everything on the roadmap, but when you visualize everything we were able to accomplish, especially a lot of like foundational stuff, like just getting tokens back to Reef Chain, getting exchanges to support Reef Chain, there was actually quite a bit of success in 2025. Okay, so up until now, we've continued to position Reef as a general purpose layer one. Even when you've seen blockchains like Celo, Avalanche, and even Polygon, they've been making some big moves lately, have clearly started to differentiate. Avalanche has been really interesting, very much institutional focused, making it easy for large institutions to spin up their own L1 that is connected to Avalanche, as basically use it the same way as you would Avalanche, but everything's permissioned, right? So like BlackRock could run their own Avalanche-driven L1 that connects back to Avalanche for liquidity and things like that, and then you can bridge your tokens to the BlackRock L1, for example. But again, not everybody needs that. Yeah, we can skip over. So we've been putting some thought and research into this, looking at cross-border payments, gaming, institutional use cases, fan tokens, RWA. There are so many different narratives you could focus on. And, again, I think we found a unique area that nobody else seems to be talking about right now. The missing middle. The RWA market. Now, real world assets in this case could mean tokenized stocks, could mean properties, could be gold, silver, other commodities, things like that. Basically real world stuff in general that has been brought on chain. Grew to, depending on how you measure it, between $18 billion and $35 billion last year. That's a lot of money, but the vast majority of it is concentrated in US treasuries. And if you follow geopolitics, that may or may not be a good thing. A lot of private credit and obviously stable coins. And stable coins, a lot of the situation there is either literally taking in US dollars or buying treasury bills and things like that, which goes back to the treasuries. What's underserved here is real estate outside of the US accessible to normal people, even real estate in the United States, accessible to normal people outside of it. There are some projects who already do this. I am an investor in multiple properties through 2 different projects that do this already. But when you look at what's being offered outside the United States, it's a pittance compared to what the amount of properties and things like that available from the United States. Alternative investments, sports equity. If you've been following me and what I've been saying for the last few weeks, no secret there that I'm interested in that. Collectibles, Pokemon cards, Warhammer 40,000, all sorts of things like that. Skins for different games, that's that sort of thing. And then more regional or jurisdiction specific tokenization. This could be private credit. This could be banking situations, all sorts of other things that are covered in there that, because it's not the United States, gets a lot less attention, but from a business perspective could still be incredibly valuable and definitely investable. Here's some examples of companies that have already chosen to build on Reef and are building on Reef, and some of the direction we're heading in here, especially the technological changes, backs this up. Stag Tower is an RWA platform that's going to purchase and tokenize Canadian real estate, but apartment rental buildings. So 3-story walk-up building, 7-story, 8-story apartment building with elevators and everything, all the way up to 30, 40-story apartment buildings if the demand is there. So that platform's in development. They're fundraising. They have a 3-year TVL target of $25 million on chain, primarily, if not entirely, on Reef, happening on Reef. Lionvest is a team from Nigeria that I met when I was there. They're awesome. They're incredibly motivated. Might have just got a little bit of a setback with Nigeria changing their capital requirements recently, but they want to tokenize RWAs like agricultural produce, especially loans related to those, into on-chain assets, which will allow investors to directly fund verified farmers. That's an opportunity to get in on probably 10 to 15% yield on those opportunities, because if you've studied the Nigerian banking system at all, you will understand that banks borrowing money from the Nigerian government, the Central Bank of Nigeria, is a massive ripoff. And then obviously the banks need to make their money, so they add even more percentage points to the loan. And at the end of the day, people who are actually borrowing money from Nigerian banks are paying anywhere from 35 to 40% interest. That's crazy. That's highway robbery. That is a market that is ripe for disintermediation, and Lionvest wants to lead that way. Casa Panenka, no secret that I'm the one who's founded that, but I'm not going to be the only one involved. We are crowdfunding and tokenizing the acquisition of a football club, soccer for those who prefer. We will have on-chain voting, operations, distributed work, all happening on-chain. The 3-year TVL on that is about 100,000. On Lionvest, it's about 2 million from the documents that they've shared with me. I've been advising them informally. These are just 3 examples of the types of products that we can, or companies that we can lean towards, encourage them to build on Reef, and bring us to a place where we have hundreds of millions of dollars of TVL, people completing on-chain transactions every day, and actually using the chain. So, I'm not going to go over the no need to fight section. We've kind of already discussed that. What do we do instead? So we target real estate equity, not real estate investment trusts, actual property ownership through legal, compliant manners that actually put that power in your hands as an investor in those properties. We target sports club equity. Again, not fan tokens, not socios, not chilies, actual ownership stakes. Casa Panenka is going to pioneer that, but maybe somebody will actually build it first, even before Casa Panenka does. Private credit for retail investors. That exists already, but again, there's like this really low bar, or not really low bar, really low market at the end, and then a really high one in the middle. There's all these companies in the middle that, or at the high end, there's all these companies in the middle who are not being talked to, and again, don't have the resources to, or the need to spin up their own permissioned L1, but still want a lot of the benefits that you would get from a permissioned L1. And collectibles and passion assets. I mentioned a few earlier. So the opportunity here is to target that missing middle. And I just realized that was a duplicate piece of content there. So what does this lead us to? This leads us to Reef and being the tokenized equity platform. Platform being a term that we can use to kind of get away from blockchain, blockchain, blockchain. There have been too many rug pulls, too much misinformation about what a blockchain is, what it does, etc. We want to move away from that in terms of our public messaging. So Reef will position itself as the rails for regulated alternative assets, purpose-built for that missing middle between Ethereum and Avalanche and Solana and BNB chain on the other side of things. That means that Reef as an entity is not going to be issuing securities. Okay, we're not going to be getting a virtual asset service provider license anywhere and then issuing things under Reef's entities. What it does mean is that we're going to provide the infrastructure that makes securities issuance really, really easy for other people in a legally compliant way based on where they're operating out of. And if we do this well, Reef becomes the default choice for RWA projects and a bunch of others, targeting primarily non-US markets. So Reef is already EVM compatible. We've got this big upgrade that should wrap up in the very near future here. And then what we're going to do is do something that has been done elsewhere but hasn't really been focused on, is implement ERC 3643. It's also called the T-Rex standard. That provides you with something called on-chain ID, which lets you do on-chain identity registry. So I have KYC'd so many different places. I'm tired of it, but I can't really get away from it depending on what's going on. This is a way for you to do that once with a partner KYC provider, SumSub, for example, Trulio, somebody like that. Write a little piece of verification on chain that you've already KYC'd, and then you shouldn't have to do it again, right? The next project can just check on chain like, has Steve KYC'd? Steve has KYC'd. Great, let's move on, right? And saves you from having to do that again and again for other apps running on Reef chain. For companies that need to do this, they can implement transfer restrictions. So it could be a whitelist. Realty, REALT.co, they do this. Not just anybody can buy those property tokens on the secondary market. You need to be whitelisted. You need to complete some paperwork. And therefore, there are transfer restrictions on those ERC20s, actually. For companies who need to do that, projects who need to do that, they can implement that with the T-Rex protocol standard. Compliance modules, so you could have things like maximum number of holders per country in order to make sure that the investor base is widespread. You can have lockup periods enforced on chain, a bunch of other things. And if you really, really need it, then you can do things like agent roles. So you can have verified issuers, verified validators, verified recovery wallets, things like that. It makes it possible for projects to easily access these tools, which they need, without having to build them all themselves. Pardon me, I'm just going to get a drink here. Okay, so how does this position us with Chiliz? Chiliz focuses on sports fan tokens, right? You can get a Benfica token, Porto token, Barcelona token, Real Madrid, all sorts of other, I think even Millonarios from Colombia. but a lot of them are dead, and a lot of them aren't even being used. The tokens fluctuate highly, like any other ERC20 would, and really there's no rhyme or reason to it. Our counter is we actually want to put you in a position where sports clubs who want to access a little bit more equity, want to open up ownership, they can come to Reef. We're going to give them the tools to do that really easily and some ideas on how to accomplish that in a legal way, structurally, right? With the actual entities, legal entities involved, and make it really easy for them to actually take outside money, right? So let's give an example of Mamelodi Sundowns from South Africa. Let's say they want to open up 20% of the ownership. We want to make it really easy for the owners of Mamelodi Sundowns to come to Reef, put together their app, and within a few weeks end up in a position where they are ready to start taking in or to start to tokenize 20% of the ownership of the club, right? I think that'd be really cool. I think a lot of South Africans and South African diaspora and all sorts of other football fans would want to buy 1 or 2 shares, and they can say, I'm a co-owner in Mamelodi Sundowns. And that is a much easier process than actually going the more traditional route. Avalanche is really focused on enterprise subnets and institutional real-world assets. That's great. I've listened to a lot of what they've been saying. They did a little series with the Defiant. I have nothing but respect for Avalanche, but we want to come one tier down. It's a massive addressable market. Lots of more companies operating in that mid-market segment. And again, they don't have the resources or the needs to spin up their own subnet. Polygon is actually going really, really hard on payments right now. They acquired a few companies, CoinMe being one of them. Again, that's great. I've used Polygon for years. I've met some of the founders and some of the other team members. Nothing but respect. They seem to, they're heading in a specific direction now. Algorand is really, really focused on government bonds and very compliance focused. Again, that's cool. We want to have alternative assets available, not just bonds. I also have some property tokens in Algorand as well. It's a bit of a smaller company, I think. But the user experience there is actually not great. It's not one I enjoy. And then a little bit of complementary positioning here. There's a company called Zone in Nigeria that provides payment infrastructure. They've facilitated, I think it's over ₦1 billion in payments. That's great, and from what I've read, they've actually tokenized a lot of that. We want to do asset tokenization, right? Real world assets, equity, etc., not focus on payments. So we could actually potentially work with a company like that. So here's our guiding principles, or not our guiding principles. Here's our brief roadmap for what we want to accomplish this year, quarter by quarter. 1, get the Reef chain upgrade done. Brand new developer docs, a new onboarding program, which is long overdue. Once Deep Current's done, get ERC 3643 deployed, get a reference implementation completed, start having some conversations with some KYC. Now, looks like I'm okay. I just got a brief disconnection notification, so I'm sorry if you can hear me just fine, but I want to make sure this is okay. All right, looks like we're good. Oh, here's the moment. And yeah, I'm back. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. We want to partner. We're going to start having these conversations with a few different KYC providers for identity verification. And so that when ER3643 is ready, we get that connection done so that if you use one of those, not whitelisted, but connected KYC providers in your app, again, you don't need to double check every single time. Your users don't need to KYC every single time they want to use your application. Internally, we want to embed analytics into every product. We just want to have a better handle on what's happening, how many people are using each product, things like that. We've had some basic analytics up until now. We need to go next level there. By the end of this quarter, we want to fork and launch 2 popular DeFi products. Ideally, we get them to deploy on Reef Chain natively, but if that can't happen for whatever reason, we will do it ourselves. Publish compliance-ready RWA developer documentation, basically just backing up everything I just said, giving people guidance on how to do it, where to do it, things like that. Obviously, every situation is going to be a little bit different. Jurisdictions are different, so we can't provide full legal guidance for all of that, but we can provide lots of different ideas on how to accomplish this, and they'll have to, go their own way at the end of the day. And Organize, one second. Organize, which will now be based on Aragon, will finally launch on Reef. We had a long slog trying to use Coordinate, and the developer, for whatever reason, just decided finally he's out of his depth and backed out. And then when we took a moment to reevaluate whether Coordinate was the right solution, we realized it wasn't. So Aragon is an OG project. It's been around literally since 2017, maybe before that. And like when I discovered crypto, Aragon already existed. And it's in a really good place. And so we've already forked all that. We're going to get started on redoing Organize to be based on Aragon, and it'll be a really good DAO coordination platform and treasury management and things like that for Reef itself and for a lot of these organizations who will deploy on Reef. Q2, obviously I'm kind of ignoring the right. You can read that if you want to. Q2, fork and launch an existing liquid staking protocol. There are well over 1 billion, maybe 2 or 3 billion Reef locked up. I think it's 16% of the supply right now locked up. And we want to give people, especially those who are not necessarily in the active set right now, an opportunity to do something else with their Reef. So if you can go somewhere where you can stake your Reef and then obviously get some sort of derivative token back and go do something else with that in a DeFi platform or something like that, I think that'd be great. We're going to be updating the copy on Reef.io in the next week or two, but we need to do a full redesign. We're going to do a whole new visual identity. Some of you may have already heard about that, but we put that on pause while we actually think about like, what is Reef? What is Reef gonna do? What is Reef gonna look like? Are we gonna target a specific niche? And so we're gonna come back to that really soon and move that forward, and then we can actually redesign the website, Reef Scan, Reef Swap, the mobile app, etc. Reef Scan will probably come sooner. We're gonna replace the current version of Reef Scan with Block Scout once Deep Current is done and deployed. So that'll actually look different, probably a lot sooner than that, but give it a nice skin. In coordination, Casa Panenka, I think, will be in a position to announce its first acquisition target, maybe by the end of Q2, early Q3 at the latest, if things are going well there. And we want to see unaffiliated RWA-focused companies at least begin to explore Reef, having those conversations, new BD person, reaching out, handling a lot of those discussions, and be in serious consideration because of everything we've done up until this point or at that point in this year. And launch Aguaviva Labs, our in-house investment arm. Something I wanted to do last year, but just wasn't a priority with everything else we decided to do in addition to or instead of that. But that will come back this year and hopefully have a few $1 million to deploy on our behalf or on Agua Viva Labs' behalf and the liquidity providers behind that fund. And that will all be focused on bringing those projects onto Reef Chain, obviously. Which is something I'm gonna have to stop saying, Reef Chain all the time. Just Reef, the tokenized equity platform. In Q3, Agua Viva Labs should be making its first investments, bringing those protocols over to Reef. Big marketing push, the alternative investment chain, the tokenized equities platform, what have you. Not that we're not going to be doing marketing before then, obviously, but like we'll have some really solid foundations. We'll have the new website, we'll have the new visual identity, we'll have our new blurb, basic things like that all covered. Q2, we've got, new BD, etc. Q3, big push, doing talks, doing, sponsoring events, things like that. Not on the financial scale that we did with Crawley Town, but hopefully this, even more impact if we spend that money and that time really wisely. But we want to be at real estate tokenization conferences. We want to be at sports business events. And hopefully the first sports equity token will launch by Q3, either via Casa Panenka or another partner of some kind. While we have affiliated organizations going here, obviously we can't rely on me or Cassie or Matiaj or Denko or whoever, doing everything. We need outside firms to be building on Reef. And finally with Q4, by the end of, I made a mistake here. Sorry, I fixed it after in the Google Slides deck, but I did not re-export the PDF. Q4, here on the right, we want to see more than 5 RWA projects live on Reef. We want to be engaged in a pilot in Nigeria or another friendly Western African country where we have some remittance integration or a local RWA project. That could be Lionvest, it could be another one. We're going to be looking at MiCA compliance validation in order to make sure that we don't have any issues with the EU ultimately. Yeah, hopefully we don't have to apply for a license. I don't think we do, but we're going to double check that, spend some time focused on that. And we want to start having partnerships with traditional finance intermediaries. It could be law firms, it could be fund administrators, in order to, again, provide guidance to companies who are building on Reef, in order to tokenize their assets on Reef and things like that. A bit more of a close-knit relationship. Just a few more slides here and then we'll get over to your questions. So if you started to see some things now, you're like, oh, okay, I have a question about this, or even a question about something from last year that hasn't come to life yet, now's the time. Again, ideally here on YouTube or on X. I will actually load. I'm going to use my other computer here. Load the thread on X now, and make sure we're good to go so I can have a look over those. And the call for question was, a few calls for questions. All right, well, that's fine. A few different Twitter threads won't kill me. X threads. All right, so our user and transaction projections. So these are low end, these are conservative. Obviously, if things go well, we could blow these out of the water. But if we get anything close to this, I'll be really happy. Month 1 to 3, by the end of this quarter, I want to see a few projects launched. I want to see 1,200 active users every day. I want to see at least 1,000 daily transactions, and I want to see our business development person, once we hire them, really starting to build up that pipeline with prospects at various stages of readiness. Right. Months 4 to 6, want to see 15 projects by the end of that quarter live on Reef. I'd like to see 5,000 active users each day, And if everybody's doing a couple of transactions, we should see somewhere between each day, we should see between 15 to 20,000 daily transactions. If there are some gaming projects that for some reason want to come build on Reef, maybe they do want to take advantage of the T-Rex protocol, or they want to tokenize the in-game assets, the collectibles, things like that, which I still think to this day is a really good use case. Whether it's for cross portability or just for actual ownership. Yeah, that's what we want to see by the end of Q2. By the end of Q3, 29 cumulative projects, more than double the active users. Gaming projects is Q3. Anyway, 15 to 20,000 daily transactions by the end of Q3. I was reading the wrong numbers for months 4 to 6. My apologies. But you can see them there. And then by the end of the year, I want to see $25 million in TVL plus on-chain, 25,000 active users every day, generating 25 to 35,000 active or daily transactions. Let's say 5 Reef each on average. You're looking at 100,000 plus Reef being used up every day in those transactions, and we will have a really healthy ecosystem, primarily focused on tokenized equities, but not entirely. Obviously, there are some risks here. There are securities compliance complexity all over the world. For Reef, Reef is infrastructure. Reef is still a layer 1 blockchain. We are not issuing securities. Our partners are going to handle their own compliance, like any other business would, right? You don't ask Amazon, or Amazon is not issuing securities through AWS. Microsoft Azure is not issuing securities, or Google Cloud, or Vultr, or DigitalOcean, or anything like that. We're an infrastructure provider. We're providing tools. They have to use those tools responsibly and appropriately for their jurisdiction. And, but we want to make it really, really easy for them, basically. And even plant the seed. A lot of these companies are not even thinking like, oh, I'm going to be able to open up ownership of my company, my sports club, whatever, to anybody, right? And if we're able to plant those seeds, then obviously we become that primary go-to place of like, well, these guys are the ones who told me about it first. I want to go check out what they have to offer. Chili's could move into equity. I haven't seen any of this, but ultimately our moat would be deal flow. We're already doing it. We're showing you how to do it. We've got the right tools, and obviously non-sports assets. So at least for investors, you guys will, hopefully the average person will think first Reef, and therefore tell the companies who are building, I want to see this on Reef. Pardon me, one sec. Okay. Regulatory changes, obviously. A multi-jurisdiction approach reduces our single point of failure. We're not focused on specific jurisdictions. We're not focused on, specific countries or what have you. There are a variety of jurisdictions where it's really, really friendly to spin up a new entity, tokenize, that entity. You can move your shares from your entity to that entity, et cetera, et cetera. So we don't need to get into all that, but basically, we're not focused on like only US or only Europe or anything like that. Our own low initial traction, that's a risk. Between Reef launching its own products, me launching my own initiatives, and good BD efforts, we should be able to prove that model before external adoption starts to take off. That's okay. Technical execution, the T-Rex protocol is open source. It's been used by other chains, but again, nobody's really leaning into this as their focus, as their raison d'être. But we are, and we have internal expertise already in this area, and we have obviously more people we can hire to make sure we get that covered off in a really good way. Speaking of which, we've actually made some hires recently. We've hired a new developer relations person who's also quite good at marketing in that niche, so that's terrific. And then we've hired a social media manager who's taken a lot of the content creation workload off of myself and off of our CMO, Cassie, and hired a graphic designer a few months ago, which hopefully you've noticed, things are much prettier and a lot more organized than they were to pretty much all of 2025. So things are really, really nice. The realistic addressable market, okay? Not total addressable market, because that doesn't make any sense. It's just a total. In the RWA and tokenization space, there's between 500 and 1,500 total projects or companies going right now. That includes pilots. Realistic number of those organizations that will actually deploy in the next 12 months, somewhere between 100 and 200, right? If you've done any sort of pilot project at work before, you'll understand that there's still a point where you have to decide, okay, do we keep going with this, or do we pull back, wait a little while, it didn't make sense, we just kill it entirely, etc. So you really get down to about, 20%, maybe a little bit more of the pilots. Our addressable slice, realistically, somewhere between 50 and 100. And it'll be up to our BD people and myself and others to, find those and get them over here. DeFi protocols, similar. 3,000 plus projects, realistic new deployments in the next 12 months, no, let's just stick with new. 150 to 300. We can probably get somewhere between 20 to 50 of that. Sports, fan tokens, alternative assets, between 200 to 500 total. 80 to 150 realistically deploying in the next 12 months. We can, hopefully get between 30 to 50 of those, at least in the door talking to us. And if we land 5 to 10, it's 5 to 10 more projects running on Reef. There's a ridiculous number of infrastructure and tools out there. 400 to 600 new, or in the next 12 months deploying. We can probably get 30 to 50 of those to support Reef. And honestly, that's more than enough. Utility apps, a good size, a good number of them deploying. I'm of two minds on this. Obviously, there are lots of situations where a utility app can and maybe even should live on a blockchain, use the technology, but we've seen time and time again them not work great. So I don't think we're going to spend a lot of effort here, but potentially we get at least a few, but our realistic addressable slice is between 50 to 100 of them. And gaming obviously has not been a focus, but with the infrastructure being what it is and our continued effort to make Reef the easiest blockchain to access and to use, we might still see some uptake there, and our realistic addressable slice is between 50 to 100. Our immediate next steps. So Antier Solutions and our internal dev team are assessing ERC 3643. It might already be implemented in Reef Deep Current in the blockchain upgrade. We're double checking. Start reaching out to a few KYC providers about integration. Start using our contacts to get some warm intros in Nigeria to companies like Zone and Yellow Card. Testing out that narrative, obviously. That's already happened, and that seems to be going really well. And our content strategy, making sure that Victoria, our new social media person, myself, Ishak, our new DevRel, that we're leaning into this, that we're establishing some thought leadership, that we're showing why it makes sense to tokenize these sorts of things, and bringing these, establishing that thought leadership so that people think of Reef first. Bunch of projects here that are in various states. Some of them have not been started yet, but they will be really soon. And that's it. Obviously, I'm going to take some time to answer your questions now, but I want to say thank you for watching. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being interested in what Reef is doing next and where we're heading. As I said, there's a lot of copy to update, a lot of the messaging and the narrative that needs to be updated, changed, etc. And you're going to start to see that over the next few weeks, especially. And that's where we've decided to head. So let me go back through YouTube here to see what questions you guys have. When will the Reef Bridge close? The Reef Bridge will close as soon as it closes. No, seriously. When we have a go live date for the upgrade, for that to come to mainnet, we will close the bridge a few days before that in order to make sure that things aren't being, there's no tokens moving back and forth anymore and things like that. That the state of the chain at blockchain upgrade time is set, and we don't have things like tokens moving back and forth. That's, other things are going to have to keep operating, but that's one thing that's going to close before then. So that's a priority for Q1 to close the bridge. It's been about a year already. It's been more than enough time, honestly. And I know a lot of you feel the same way. We're going to have one last marketing push on the bridge. I don't think we need to refill it anymore, but if we do, it'll be at that time. When new projects on Reef Chain? Soon. Soon. Official one T6X. When Reef launch, it's ReefPad. So ReefPad as a brand is dead. It'll be called, well, right now it's called Hydra Starter. I don't know if it'll still be called Hydra Starter when it launches. We're waiting for the upgrade to finish first, because if we don't, we might need to deploy the contracts again after the fact. But at the same time, if we wait, then the contracts, that Hydra Starter gets new capabilities, right? It'll be running on the latest version or a more recent version of the Ethereum virtual machine. It'll have access to, or the contracts can be refactored a little bit to be more efficient and things like that. And so that's waiting for the blockchain upgrade to get completed first. Here's a long one. When will staking via the native Reef wallet be implemented? Really soon, actually. And I'm really, really sorry that your coins were stolen through vulnerability. That's really unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. We did not recommend the Fearless Wallet Chrome extension. As a matter of fact, the Fearless Wallet Chrome extension, I don't think even has Reef chain support. It was the mobile app that we've been recommending because, to my knowledge, that's the only piece of Fearless Wallet code that actually, or applications that support Reef chain. So anyway, we actually just got a, we just got a new build of Reef chain wallet that has a lot of behind the scenes changes. The app is much more stable. It launches faster. It's got, it's more fault tolerant and all sorts of other things. And this next version is intended to bring swapping capabilities to iOS. Once we've brought that back, then we want to reintroduce viewing NFTs on iOS, viewing and sending. You can actually view already. We want to bring back sending NFTs on iOS. That involves explaining to Apple's app review team, this is not a sell feature, it's a send feature, right? You're not selling it, and so we don't need to add Apple Pay. That's silly. And that's where we're at with that. So you should be able to swap tokens in Reef Chain Wallet for iOS and iPadOS in the next couple of weeks, hopefully sooner. And yeah, and then we're going to go back to the NFT thing. And in the meantime, we're going to add staking as well. Anthony, thank you so much. I really appreciate the positive sentiment there. Also appreciate that from Fugas. Much appreciated. Daniel, which project will be the first to go live on Reef mainnet with real users and real assets, and when? I can't predict that. Somebody could be cooking something up in secret and launch tomorrow. You know, I don't know. Reef Swap's been live for a while. You're more than welcome to use it. Squid has been live for a while. You're more than welcome to use it. You can stake already, obviously. That's not a ton of activity necessarily, but those things all exist and have real users and real assets. Oh, sorry, not real assets in terms of RWAs, but real tokens. Stanislav, staking. Yes. Docs.reef.io, lots of information there about how to stake your Reef. The easiest way to do that has been in Fearless Wallet's mobile app. I know, well, it seems like they're not developing it anymore, unfortunately. But as I just addressed, we do want to make it much easier to stake Reef. And so that'll be coming to our mobile app really soon. In the meantime, you can use the browser extension for Chrome and Chromium-based browsers like Edge, Brave, Opera, Vivaldi, etc. And stake your tokens at console.reefscan.com. And all the information on how to do that is on YouTube and in the docs. Luis, thank you. Much appreciated. Pierre, also, thank you. Much appreciated. When will we see the first official project on Reef Chain? I don't know. Do you mean official coming from the team internally or something else? Anyway, soon. Regardless. That's everything from YouTube. Let's head over to X. What are the competitive advantages that you feel most confident about? I feel most confident about the fact that our team is still here. We're pushing, we're building, we care, and I think we care more than almost any other team out there right now. Not every other team, but almost any other team. And primarily, I feel really confident in the fact that I have a ton of experience in this area. And therefore, we can leverage that into really good documentation, into really good marketing, into just moving things forward, basically, so that we make it really easy and again plant those seeds with mid-market mid-market companies that this is possible. This team at Reef is making it really easy for you to do this new thing that maybe you don't quite understand. And yeah, and leaning into that, like I said, everybody's kind of choosing their lanes. Cello has a specific focus now with MiniPay and things like that, very emerging market focused. Polygon, payments, Avalanche, institutions, very focused on institutions. Solana, payment settlements, and obviously a culture of meme coins there, and I'm sorry about the dog, and things like that. And yeah, is Reef now that was Gustavo Grandma Pulse, that's quite the name. Is Reef now shifting focus towards tokenized real world assets items similar or different to the other billion-plus dollar market cap RWAs in the space, please? Yes, but as I addressed earlier, we're not opening up conversations with BlackRock necessarily, right? There's thousands and thousands of organizations that operate in the middle. And I'm just going to be repeating myself now, but like, yes, but different is the short answer there. LFG, Mikey the Last MF. Thanks, Mikey. There are some replies in here in Cyrillic and in Turkish that I tried to translate earlier. I didn't see any kind of questions come out of that, so I'm going to skip over those. We had another post on X about an hour ago. No replies there, no problem. And then this one here. Cool. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look at Telegram just to see if anything came in through there. I hope not, because we didn't have any things in there, but... Oh, Victoria, our new social media person, just sent me some questions that came in. Okay, cool. Gordos token. Looks like we got 3 more here. Nope, 1 more, because I already answered the other 2. Gordos token. By the way, Gordos, I know you've been around for a while. You are sometimes really critical, but in a constructive way. So that's fine. Yeah, thanks for being around and for being part of the community. How do you anticipate to rebuild trust, but more so confidence in the project to past, current, and future holders? Executing on what we've said. I don't think last year was too ambitious. As I've said in Telegram already, I think we lacked the number of people we needed to execute on everything we wanted to do, ultimately. Some of that was even, marketing with Crawley Town. We didn't have enough people to get done all the things I had in my mind that we wanted to get done. So that was a capacity issue, not a knowledge or funding issue. But ultimately, executing on this roadmap, executing on hiring new people, bringing them in the door, making sure everything is set and right. And when we say something is available, it's actually available. We had this issue of I'm not going to get into specifics, but big promises from teams who used to work for Reef or with Reef. And those promises were not, or those ambitions were not backed up by anything. I will cite one example where somebody wrote, and I'm going to just say somebody, and it wasn't me, obviously, and it wasn't Denko. Somebody wrote an article for the blog about how Reef was becoming a multi-virtual machine capable blockchain. That was their attempt to get the dev team to actually do that. That was not on the roadmap. The dev team had no ambitions of implementing Rust virtual machine at the time, et cetera, et cetera. And the conversations I had around stuff like that happening were so frustrating. And I had less power then than I do now. And yeah, it's just, we're in a much better place now. I think on a lot of fronts, almost every front, 2025 was Reef's best year yet in terms of actually executing on the roadmap, actually getting things done, working hard to restore a lot of things that should be there and should exist, like centralized exchange support, like the app being on iOS, basic stuff like that. And we were able to do a lot of that. And so if we can continue to execute on wrapping up some things from last year, focusing now on a specific niche, therefore being able to hone our messaging and our narrative really, really specifically, I think that changes a lot. And hopefully you will see that throughout this year, and hopefully we will all see that. All right, guys, that's it. That does it. Thanks so much for watching, for tuning in, for asking questions. Oh, wait, one more question. Visan Daniel, one more. What would you consider the highest impact dApp the reef ecosystem is missing today? That's a great question, actually. And I think ultimately, I think it's an app from a company that can actually legally refer to you as an investor. That could be property tokenization. That could be sports equity ownership tokenization, or something like an on-chain perpetual DEX. There are lots of people who like to mess around with futures, perpetuals, etc. I am not one of those people. I am not a fan of that financial instrument even existing, because I feel like it's often, not every day, but often used as to manipulate the price of various tokens, assets, securities, etc. TradFi and DeFi. And the whole GameStop thing, if you go back a couple years ago, is a really good example of that. Lots of short sellers, people on Reddit deciding to punish, quote unquote, those short sellers, and then GameStop's stock pumping hard and short sellers getting wiped out. It was kind of used for, I'm not even going to say for good. It was kind of used in an unintended way in that case. And like I said, there are people who like to engage with that, and that could drive a lot of activity on chain. But I think the most high impact thing would be something like Realty, Lofty, Stag Tower, etc., coming on chain, accepting payments on chain, distributing the ownership tokens on chain, and your earnings, your monthly or weekly rent earnings and things like that, all on chain, so that everything exists in one place, right? And I think that's really, really cool. Some privacy should be added around that, and we're looking at that as well, which is not on the roadmap specifically, but definitely something we've discussed. And ultimately, that'll put us in a really good position in terms of attention, usage, real utility, etc. Okay. Again, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Love the questions. Thanks for asking. We will do this more regularly. We intended on doing it more regularly last year. That didn't happen. I'm going to schedule something for April, like tomorrow, so that it's predictable. We know it's on the calendar, and I know I need to be ready to talk to you guys again about what's happening. I'm in Telegram. I'm in Discord. Denko and I talk almost every day for people who continue to wonder about that. And thanks again. Have a great evening, a great morning, wherever you are, and we'll talk to you later. Ciao.